I met a man a number of years ago who drove a race car for the father of a good friend. He had been a champion go kart racer. But he had recently given his heart to Jesus. And I invited him to come speak to youth from churches all across North Carolina. Some of you were probably there. I know Jerry Fry was. His name was Lake Speed. Perfect name for a race car driver. But he came to Campbell University and spoke to a group of churches, youth group. And he talked about being a World Go Kart champion. He had worked all his life to reach that pinnacle. And it's all that his life revolved around. His family was very successful and had provided him every opportunity in the world. But it wasn't enough. He had anything a young man would have wanted, but it wasn't enough. He won 6 United States go-kart championships, but it wasn't enough. And so he set his sights on winning the world championship. So much so that he lost everything and everyone he cared about, because he was so obsessed with winning that championship. And the day that he met his goal, he became the first American to ever win that championship in Lamont, France. 1973, the World Karting Association Championship. He described it as the worst day of his life. He said it was the worst day of my life, and reporters asked me why I was the saddest looking champion they'd ever seen. He explained it was because there was nothing to point to that was greater than what he had done. He had reached the top. Just a young man in his 20s, he had already reached the top. There was nothing else to live for. Nowhere else to go. Shortly after that, he found out about NASCAR and the challenge presented there. And he was fortunate enough to have an opportunity to drive. And eventually, as a result of ministry to the drivers, he was introduced to Christ. And he trusted the Lord Jesus. He went on to be fairly successful. He won a race. He had a lot of top tens. The day he stood before that group of young people, he was the number 1 points leader in the Cup Series at that time. But more importantly, this man who had reached the top of his world was without hope. And he found out that there is hope for today, for tomorrow. And there's hope because of the Lord Jesus. And it didn't matter whether he was a world champion or nothing. It didn't matter if he was well known or not. There was still hope. This is the hope of all who know Christ.